Good evening everyone. In this video I'm going to do a simple voiceover, some overlaid pictures of how I built my koi pond. This is the first pond I built. It was a 900 gallon sleeper pond build, filtered on a Easy Pod and Tempest from a 4-inch bottom drain. Very simple, very effective, and worked really well. So yep, time come to rip down the old pond, removal of the sleepers, breaking up of the decking, taking down the filter shed, removal of the liner and all the protection underneath it. It's 4-inch drain pipe work, and yeah, and then finally got down to the reinforced concrete that we put on the bottom. That's a 4-inch drain in the waistline, and got back down to a bit of a base level to start off, where we could start with a blank canvas again. As you can see in this picture, that's the footing of the bottom of the retaining wall. Now this played a lot of factors in building the new pond and the old pond as well. So once we got back to blank canvas and all the decking was removed, we could start making some plans of how we were going to design the new pond. I wanted to try and make the most of the area that I got. So I decided at this very early stage of the pond build that I was only ever going to build 3 walls of the pond and use the retaining wall as the 4th wall, just to gain as many litres as I could. So we started removing the concrete collar that was around the base of the old pond. The sleepers were rebarred into this concrete collar and made it a good footing to work off the old pond. As you can see, the old pond actually went lower than the footings of the retaining wall, which was a bit of a mistake that I made building the first pond, as it put a shelf in the old pond and caused some issues, and that's something we needed to change in the new pond. So the next problem that we found was that when we were digging the base of the pond out, I think what we actually unearthed was the footings of an old outhouse or coal house that was around the back of the pond. These footings weren't connected to the retaining wall at all, but they were a separate square footing structure out in the middle of the area we needed to build the pond, and probably only 6 inches down under some topsoil. So these massive chunks of concrete that were well over engineered needed to be removed so we could dig the base down of the pond down to the same height as the top of the footing. So you can see we dug out a lot of soil there, and this is what we unearthed. We had no idea we had this much concrete to move. So the next part of the build involved digging and putting in the concrete collar off the footings of the retaining wall. This was a U-shaped concrete collar that we took a laser level from the highest point of the footing of the retaining wall, and we pulled it all the way around so it should be level end to end. This took quite a bit of doing, as there was quite a lot of soil to move, but worked out well in the end because I needed quite a lot of soil to be able to fill in the area where the old pond was. As you can see, that's the levels going in there and the whacker plate for whacking the base down. As you can see from this picture here, we left a hole in the part of the concrete collar for the bottom drain to run in. I was going to put a sand base in the bottom of this pond, as I didn't want to put a full concrete pad down. Now the fun part started. We could start to get some blocks in the ground. As you can see, it's drilled into the concrete collar and rebar put in between the hollow sections of the 9-inch hollow blocks. This is to give it strength and to stop any movement whatsoever. These were later filled with concrete, so there was no chance of any movement anywhere. They were also drilled on a diagonal into the retaining wall. Rebar was also laid in between the course of the first and second set of hollow blocks. This was to give it even more strength and to stop any lateral movement of the blocks. As you can see here, the blocks were then filled with concrete, like I said before, and even more rebar in to stop any movement whatsoever. After the 2 courses of 9-inch hollow blocks, We started with the 9-inch solid blocks laid flat. These were then built the corners up, and we could start to decide where to put some returns. Those returns ended up being one return where I'm stood now, facing down the pond towards the spirit level, and then another return that was put over the top for a heater line later on. It was going to be added to the pond. Also decided to make the size of the window smack bang in the middle. So with the block work finished, we ended up with a total depth of 1.1 metres. I would have liked to have gone one course higher, but the pond looked out of proportion and looked too high for where it was sat in the space. The window set smack bang in the middle, and then we started on the floor of the pond, getting that set nicely and slightly beveled to the bottom drain. The bottom drain is a Cottney Coy 4-inch standard, just very cheap, easy to get bottom drain, but it's actually been modified to 3-inch. So I got one of the lads from work who's got a lathe to turn a 3-inch to 4-inch adapter so that it would fit straight into the 110mm Cottney Coy bottom drain size. That then run along the bottom of the pond to one 3-inch swept 90 and straight up into the Nexus 220. Next thing to do was the floor and the eco drains in the filter shed. This was to carry the waste from the Nexus, and also the eco drains run down the front of the pond, which meant I didn't have to put any gutter in on the shed roof, and they go straight to waste. The levels of the Nexus were set and the outer block work for the filter shed was started. Now it was time to start the woodwork and the roof for the filter shed and pond. We mocked up the uprights to support the 4x4 timber across the front, and the back of the roof would just sit on top of the retaining wall. The roof was made out of 18mm triple walled polycarb sheets and just overhang the front by 6 inches straight in and drip straight into the eco drain. Then started on some of the internals of the pond, put in 25mm foam on the insides to insulate it, and then the sand base was started and beveled towards the bottom drain. This just kept it real simple and easy, and my thinking was that it could be turned into anything if we ever decided to move house. The recess for the window was cut out, and then the outside of the pond was started with polycarb windows and a flip-up door. This was done due to the otter issue that we had with the old pond. The window was fitted, and then it was time to get the box weld liner in. This was really simple and really easy, and was much better than the old liner that had folds and creases in it. The woodwork was finished on the inside, and the end of the pond was boarded in against the shed with a polycarb end to create the greenhouse effect and to keep the temperatures high in the summer. And this was the finished article. The fish went in early April 2024, and yeah, settled in nicely. There's 12 koi and 2 tamasaba in there, just a few tozai, a few grow-ons, and 3 of the older fish from the original pond, the Achiba, Shisui and the Karashi, and all the other fish were new to grow on. The window went in really well. I left the outside just as raw blocks at the minute because I didn't know how to finish it off. The filter shed was finished off with some match boarding, and a jump guard that's removable was fitted inside that can literally be unslotted and just stops anything from being able to jump out the pond and onto the filter shed floor. So yeah, you can see there the sun shining, and it really doesn't take long for the temperature to rise in here, with it basically being a huge greenhouse. It worked really well all summer and kept the pond at anywhere between 22 and 24. The Nexus 220 did a wonderful job. I'm running 25 litres of K1 micro in the middle section and 100 litres in the outer section of the Nexus on the bio side. This was powered by a 100 litre Fujimac air pump, and did a brilliant job of boiling the media up, and because I'm running more media in the centre, boils the middle real well. That's all pumped round with a 9,000 litre OR's Vary pump, 55 watt UV, and one return that went back to the pond to the left hand side there, the 2-inch. The 1-inch T there was later removed because I had some other ideas and then they got changed, so that 1-inch line doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, that's the pond. Worked out 1800 gallon, one bottom drain straight into the nexus. Yeah, worked topping. Got some real good growth on some fish this year, and yeah, very pleased with it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.